Chapter 10, Leadership, Being an Effective Project Manager.
The objectives for the chapter are to create an awareness of the network of relationships that need to be managed to be a successful project manager, to identify the currencies a project manager can use to influence others, to encourage students to engage in managing by wandering around, to highlight the importance of maintaining positive relationships with project sponsors, to understand and discuss the importance of building trust for project success, and finally, to identify some of the qualities of an effective project manager. According to Kotter, management is about coping with complexity, while leadership is about coping with change. Good management brings about order and stability by formulating plans and objectives, designing structures and procedures, monitoring results against plan, and taking corrective action when necessary. Leadership involves recognizing and articulating the need to significantly alter the direction and operation of the project, aligning people to the new direction and motivating them to work together to overcome hurdles produced by change and to realize new objectives. Strong leadership, while usually desirable, is not always necessary to successfully complete a project. Well-defined projects that encounter no significant surprises require little leadership, as might be the case in constructing a conventional apartment building in which the project manager simply administers the project plan. Conversely, the higher degree of uncertainty encountered on a project, whether in terms of changes in project scope, technological stalemate, breakdowns in coordination between people, and so on and so forth, the more leadership is required. It takes a special person to perform both roles well. Some individuals are great visionaries who are good at exciting people about change. Too often, though, these same people lack the discipline or patience to deal with the day-to-day drudgeries of managing. Likewise, there are other individuals who are very well organized and methodical, but lack the ability to inspire others. Strong leaders can compensate for their managerial weaknesses by having trusted associates who will oversee and manage the details of the project. A weak leader can complement his or her strengths by having assistants who are good at sensing the need to change and rallying project participants. One of the things that makes good project managers so valuable to an organization is that they have the ability to both manage and lead a project. Too often, when new project managers do find time to work directly on a project, they adapt the hands-on and do everything themselves type of approach to managing the project. They choose this style not because they are power-hungry egomaniacs, but because they are eager to achieve results. They become quickly frustrated by how slowly things operate, the number of people that have to be brought on board, and the difficulty of gaining cooperation. Unfortunately, as this frustration builds, the natural temptation is to exert more pressure and get more heavily involved in the project. These project managers quickly earn the reputation of micromanaging and begin to lose sight of the real role they play on the guiding of the project. So they soon learn that they can't do it all and get it all done by themselves, and that the hands-on work is not the same as leading. Some new managers never break out of this vicious cycle. Others soon realize that authority does not equal influence, and that being an effective project manager involves managing a more complex and expansive set of interfaces than they had previously anticipated. They encounter a web of relationships that require a much broader spectrum of influence than they felt was necessary or even possible. Depending on the nature of the project, there are a number of different groups outside the organization that influence the success of the project. The most important is the customer, which the project is designed, as in the next slide. Each of these groups of individuals bring different expertise, standards, priorities, and agendas to the project. The sheer breadth and complexity of the relationships that need to be managed distinguishes project management from regular management. But remember, project management is tough, exciting, and rewarding. Endeavor to persevere. To be effective project manager, one must understand how these groups can affect the project and develop methods for managing the dependencies. The nature of these dependencies are identified here. The project team manages and completes project work. Project managers naturally compete with each other over resources and the support of top management. Administrative support groups such as HR, IT, purchasing agents, and maintenance provide valuable support services. Functional managers, depending on how the project is organized, can play a minor or major role towards project success. Top management approves funding of the project and establishes priorities within the organization. Project sponsors champion the project and use their influence to gain approval of the project. And contractors may do all the actual work, in some cases, with the project team merely coordinating their contributions. Then there's government agencies who place constraints on the project work. There's other organizations, depending on the nature of the project, may directly or indirectly affect the project. Of course, there's the customers, who define the scope of the project and ultimate project success rests on their satisfaction. These relationships are interdependent in that a project manager's ability to work effectively with one group will affect the ability to manage other groups. The project manager structure being used will influence the number and degree of external dependencies that will need to be managed. One advantage of creating a dedicated project team is that it reduces these dependencies, especially within the organization, because most of the resources are assigned to the project. The old-fashioned view of managing projects emphasized directing and controlling subordinates. This new perspective emphasizes managing project stakeholders and anticipating change as the most important jobs. Within this web of relationships, the project manager must find out what needs to be done to achieve the goals of the project and build a cooperative network to accomplish these goals. Project managers must do so without the authority to expect or demand cooperation. Doing so requires sound communication skills, political savvy, and broad influence base. The successful management of a project. A manager must build a cooperative network among divergent allies. Networks are mutually beneficial alliances that are generally governed by the law of reciprocity. The basic principle is this: one good deed deserves another, and likewise, one bad deed deserves another. The primary way to gain cooperation is to provide resources and services for others in exchange for future resources and services. This is the age-old saying, quid pro quo, something for something. or in today's language, you scratch my back and I'll scratch yours. Cohen and Bradford described the exchange view of influence as currencies. If you want to do business in a given country, you have to be prepared to use the appropriate currency, and the exchange rates can change over time as conditions change. In the same way, what is valued by a marketing manager may be different from what is valued by a veteran project engineer, and you are likely to need to use different influence currency to obtain the cooperation of each individual. Although this analogy is a bit oversimplified, the key premise here holds true, and is the long run. Debt and credit accounts must be balanced for cooperative relationships to actually work. The next two slides present the commonly traded organizational currencies identified by Cohen and Bradford. As you can see in this slide, there's task-rated currencies and position-related currencies. Here we have inspirational-related currencies, relationship-related currencies, and personal-related currencies. The first step to building a social network is identifying those on whom the project depends for its success. The project manager and his or her key assistants need to ask the following questions. Whose cooperation will we need? Whose agreement or approval will we need? Whose opposition will keep us from accomplishing the project? Many project managers find it helpful to draw a map of these dependencies, as you'll see in the next slide, which contain the dependencies identified by a project manager responsible for installing a new financial software system in the company. It is always better to overestimate rather than underestimate dependencies. All too often, otherwise talented and successful project managers have been derailed because they were blindsided by someone whose position or power they did not anticipate. After identifying who you will depend on, you are ready to step into their shoes and see the project from their perspective. And you can see the different dependencies in this case. For example, purchasing, inventory, shipping, IT. Once you have established who the key players are that will determine success, then you initiate contact and begin to build a relationship with these players. Building this relationship requires a management style employees at Hewlett Packard refer to as management by wandering around, to reflect that managers spend the majority of their time outside their offices. Managing by wandering around is somewhat of a misnomer in that there is a purpose or pattern behind the wandering part. Through face-to-face interactions, project managers are able to stay in touch with what is really going on in the project and build cooperation essential to the success of the project. Effective project managers initiate contact with key players to keep abreast of developments, anticipate potential problems, provide encouragement, and reinforce the objective and vision of the project. They are able to intervene to resolve conflicts and prevent stalemates from occurring. In essence, they manage the project. Effective project managers also find the time to regularly interact with more stakeholders. They keep in touch with suppliers, vendors, top management, and other functional managers. In doing so, they maintain familiarity with different parties, sustain friendships, discover opportunities to do favors, and understand the motives and needs of the others. Through frequent communications, they alleviate people's concerns about the project, they dispel rumors, they warn people of potential problems, and lay the groundwork for dealing with setbacks in a more effective manner. Unless project managers take the initiative to build a network of supportive relationships, they are likely to see a manager only when there is bad news and when they need a favor. Experienced project managers recognize the need to build relationships before they need them. They initiate contact with the stakeholders at times when there are no outstanding issues or problems and therefore no anxieties or suspicions. Research consistently points out that project success is strongly affected by the degree to which a project has the support of top management. Such support is reflected in an appropriate budget, responsiveness to unexpected needs, and a clear signal to others in the organization of the importance of cooperation. To win the loyalty of team members, project managers have to be effective advocates for their projects. They have to be able to get top management to rescind unreasonable demands, provide additional resources, and recognize the accomplishments of the team members. This is more easily said than done. While it may seem counterintuitive for a subordinate to manage a superior, smart project managers devote considerable time and attention to influencing and garnering the support of top management. Project managers have to accept profound differences in perspective and become skilled at the art of persuading the seniors. Project managers have to cultivate strong ties with upper managers who are sponsoring the project. These are high-ranking officials who champion approval and funding of the project. As such, their reputations are aligned with the project. Sponsors are also the ones who defend the project when it is under attack in upper circles of management. They shelter the project from excessive interference. Project managers should always keep such people informed of any problems that may cause embarrassment or disappointment. A highly visible, interactive management style is not only essential to building and sustaining cooperative relationships, it also allows the project managers to utilize their most powerful leadership tool, their own behavior. Often, when faced with uncertainty, people look to others for clues as to how to respond and demonstrate a propensity to mimic the behavior of their superiors. A project manager's behavior symbolizes how other people should work on the project. Through behavior, a project manager can influence how others act and respond to a variety of issues related to the project. To be effective, project managers must walk the talk. Six aspects of leading by example are priorities. Actions speak louder than words. Subordinates and others discern project managers' priorities on how they spend their time. Through their actions, project managers can convey a sense of urgency, which can permeate project activity. This urgency, in part, can be conveyed through stringent deadlines, frequent status report meetings, and aggressive solutions for expediting the project. If they want others to work faster and solve problems quicker, then they need to work faster. They need to hasten the pace of their own behavior. How project managers respond to problems sets the tone for how others tackle problems. If project managers focus more on how they can turn a problem into an opportunity, or what can be learned from a mistake, then others are more likely to adapt a more proactive approach to problem solving. How managers act towards outsiders influences how team members interact with outsiders. If project managers set the norm of treating outsiders with respect and being responsive to their needs, then others will more likely follow suit. Veteran project managers recognize that if they want participants to exceed project expectations, then they have to exceed others' expectations of a good project manager. They establish a high standard for project performance through the quality of their daily interactions. How others respond to ethical dilemmas that arise in the course of a project will be influenced by how the project manager has responded to similar dilemmas. In many cases, team members base their actions on how they think the project manager would respond. Questions of ethics have already arisen in previous chapters that we've discussed, as in padding of cost and time estimation, exaggerating payoffs of project proposal, and so forth. Ethical dilemmas involve situations where it is difficult to determine whether conduct is right or wrong. Is it acceptable to falsely assure customers that everything is on track when, in reality, you are only doing so to prevent them from panicking and making matters worse? In a survey of project managers, 81% reported that they encounter ethical issues in their work. These dilemmas range from being pressured to alter status reports, backdate signatures, or shade documentation to match the reality of project progress to falsify cost accounts, compromise safety standards to accelerate progress, and approve shoddy work. To provide greater clarity to business ethics, many companies and professional groups have published a code of conduct. Cynics see these documents as simply window dressing, while advocates argue they are very important. Most project managers report that they rely on their own private sense of right and wrong. When one project manager called his internal compass. One common rule of thumb for testing whether a response is ethical is to ask, imagine that whatever you did was going to be reported on the front page of your local newspaper. How would you like that? Would you be that comfortable with that? Top management and the culture of an organization play a decisive role in shaping members' beliefs in what is right and what is wrong. Many project managers claim that ethical behavior is its own reward. By following your own internal compass, your behavior expresses your personal values. Effective project managers have to be able to deal with the contradictory nature of their work. Some of these contradictions are: project managers have to put out fires, restore order, and get the project back on track. At the same time, they need to be innovative and develop new, better ways of doing things. Project managers have to see the big picture and how their project fits within the larger strategy of the firm. There are also times when they must get deeply involved in project work and technology. Project managers have to motivate and entice individual performers, while at the same time maintain teamwork. Project managers have to intervene, resolve stalemates, and solve technical problems, and assist on different approaches. At the same time, they have to recognize when it is appropriate to sit on the sidelines and let other people figure out what to do. Project managers have to be adaptable and responsive to events and outcomes that occur on the project. However, at the same time, they have to hold the line at times and tough it out when everyone else wants to give up. Project managers need to forge a unified project team whose members stimulate one another to extraordinary performance. But at the same time, they have to counter the excesses of cohesion and the team's resistance to outside ideas. They have to cultivate loyalties to both the team and the parent organization. While we agree that not everyone has the right stuff to be an effective project manager, there are some core traits and skills that can be developed and successful on the job. And they are: project managers must be able to take a holistic rather than a reductionist approach to projects. Before you can lead and manage others, you have to be able to lead and manage yourself. Begin by establishing a firm sense of who you are, what you stand for, and how you should behave. Good project managers take action before it's needed to prevent small concerns from escalating into major problems. Project management is not for the meek. Project managers have to have a command of their emotions and be able to respond constructively to others when things get a bit out of control. Because the primary role of a project manager is to integrate the contributions of different businesses and technical disciplines, it is important that a manager have a general grasp of business fundamentals and how the different functional disciplines interact to contribute to the success of the business. Time is a manager's scarce resource. Project managers have to be able to budget their time wisely and quickly adjust their priorities. Project managers have to be able to deal effectively with a wide range of people and win their support and endorsement of the project. Project managers have to display a can-do attitude. They have to be able to find rays of sunlight in a dismal day and keep people's attention positive. A good sense of humor and a playful attitude are often a project manager's greatest strengths. So how does one develop these traits? Workshops, self-study, and courses can upgrade one's general business perspective and capacity for systems thinking. Trading programs can improve emotional intelligence and political skills. People can also be taught stress and time management techniques. However, we know of no workshop or magic potion that can transform a pessimist into an optimist or provide a sense of purpose when there is not one there. These qualities get at the very soul of being a person. Optimism, integrity, and even being proactive are not easily developed if they are not already within the person. Project managers are encouraged to keep in mind the following: build relationships before you need them. Identify key players and what you can do to help them before you need their assistance. It is always easier to receive a favor after you have granted one. This requires the project manager to see the project in the system's terms and to appreciate how it affects other activities and agendas inside and outside the organization. Trust is sustained through frequent face-to-face contact. Trust withers through neglect. This is particularly true under conditions of rapid change and uncertainty that naturally engender doubt, suspicion, and even momentary bouts of paranoia. Project managers must maintain frequent contact with key stakeholders to keep abreast of developments, concerns, engage in reality testing, and focus attention on the project. Frequent face-to-face interactions affirm mutual respect and trust in each other. Thank you.